Haha. Welcome, welcome. I'm going to see if I can open up the chat window. I'm going to grab my coffee. Your timing's perfect, Peter. Um, uh, Peter Champoux, everybody. Nikki Hill of Oregon and Costa of Victoria, Australia. I'm going to grab my coffee cup. Peter, I've already introduced you, a little bit of our background about Gaia Matrix.
Okay.
A little bit about ley lines and earth rings and ley lines of America. And they're just Nikki's got her printout of
No,
that.
this is the Moon River book,
Ah,
Yeah, there we go.
and I love this book. It is so essentialized and says so much in such a pure way. It just blows my mind.
No, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
mm,
I was successful. That's what I was trying to do. You know.
It absolutely worked.
Yeah.
There's so much complexity about everything that what you were able to essentialize about the role of rivers
Hmm.
and what they represent and what they connect us to is so exciting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I hope
It's
that
all
it's
about water. Wow.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But you were saying things in there that I have never understood before, connecting big dots. And I moved to Oregon, and when I moved here, I really heard I'm coming to have
Yeah.
dialogues with water,
Okay.
because there's so many rivers here. And I live right next to the ocean, just across the street. So, yeah, so that's why this book was so meaningful.
mm, And I'll just say, the you two are both in the introduction course, and you both have a full set of the ebook. So Costa, if you haven't seen Moon Rivers, it's in your complete
Hmm.
set. So I hate to miss a second. I'm just going to grab my coffee cup.
All right.
And as I said to the folks, Peter, my hope is just to, I'm recording
Yeah.
with everybody's permission. And so I won't post anything again without everybody's permission. And Peter has gone to get his coffee probably. Was just going to
You better
say,
get yours. You better get yours then before it goes
okay, that's a
cold.
good time, right?
Well, and Dan, you're going to go get your coffee at 6:15 at night.
All right. So point being, Peter, that you folks hardly need me here, but given that we're recording, I'll moderate somewhat and see if somebody uses
Yeah.
an acronym, I'll get you to spell it out or something, or if I don't not quite clear on a name or something, or uh
Okay.
um
What brings us together?
oh it's everybody wanted to meet everybody. People wanted to meet you, and so here we are.
Great. Okay.
Costa and I had a long conversation last week at this time, and we thought, well, this seems to be an opportune time. My wife's at work, the time difference and everything. So I paid for the next level of Zoom so we could get 90 minutes. So we'll figure
Sweet.
to, I mean, or as much as we want, but I figure we'll wind down at 7:30 since we did start the clock at 6. But this is just an introduction, so and I've already swapped emails with folks, and your email's
Okay.
public information, Peter, and your phone number, right?
Yeah.
So the folks wanted to ask you about your work, and certainly I learn a lot when other people are doing the talking. So I don't feel like I need to ask a lot of questions, but more I'll kind of keep in mind the people who aren't here and see if I need to, define a term or something like that. I'll do that. But um, I would just
Okay. This is part of your course curriculum.
well, it's not
Yeah.
exactly because we don't have the whole crew here, but I'm just learning
Mhm.
how to use Zoom. So, it's a
Okay.
great test run now that we're
Oh, you're
recording.
sharing this with the rest of the participants.
Now that we're recording and everything,
Yeah.
yes, I'm,
Okay.
uh, you
Great.
know, uh,
Well,
as
let's
long
get
as,
to it.
yeah, yeah. So I don't have to stand in the way here. I'm just thinking, just in terms of framing the whole thing, uh, I'll say, uh, we'll go around the circle, I guess, and just briefly introduce ourselves in the frame of Earth Magic, or however we frame that. And so, the way I frame it for myself is that I'm facilitating personal and planetary ascension, that I'm a student of alchemy, that alchemy is geomancy is a subset of alchemy. And so, and then I do have the elevator pitch I give that there's an infinite amount of energy available everywhere all the time for our physical healing, our psychic opening, and harmonizing the planet. And in terms of the Earth Magic course, we'll be touching briefly and probably approximately hour-long segments on each of about 35 different topics that
Yeah.
a student might encounter in a deeper study of Earth magic. So I may make reference to those kind of subjects along the way and call them out by name. So
Yeah.
so there you have it. So thanks everybody for showing up. Maybe on my screen, Nikki, you're next. If you can just kind of introduce yourself and feel free to throw in something, out of left field. Doesn't have to be all about Earth magic. I'll say, in terms of left field, I'm enjoying time with two sets of grandkids who live nearby. I have my daughter's four grandkids and my son's two grandkids, and so that's my non-vortex share, if you will, Nikki.
All right. The two things I have always felt worth doing in life, my two goals are I once read Mira Alfasa, the mother who was the partner of Sri Aurobindo, say that our task was to bring light and intelligence and consciousness back into every cell of matter. And so I've always seen that as the true redemption of the feminine and matter and mater and mother. And then the other one has always been a personal goal to become one with the Gaian mind. And Peter, that's so much why I've really enjoyed reading your work as a Gaiagrapher and Gaiagraphy. And so I just have so many questions for you. Or my main, what I'm really interested in is how we really become one with the Gaian mind. And one of the things I loved about the Moon River book so much was how you talk about the earth body and how it connects to our human body. And
Mm.
of course, through water, and as the heart, and you add the geometries and the spin and how it's functioning and draw those metaphors. And it's just beautiful. So that's really would be my main interest in hearing from you. And the thing I'd like to understand more is the rings, how how you're mapping the rings.
Okay.
And Dan, I don't know if I have any left field, any left field anything at the moment.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Ghost, tell us, how early did you get your start, or tell us anything you like in regards to,
Okay.
yeah.
I was, I'm sure you can identify with this. Then I was born with it. Um, Seeing the invisible as a child, I can remember as a 5-year-old, I'd look at my ancestors, like uncles and aunties and that type of thing. I'd look at their face, then I'd turn away and I'd look back at them. I'd see their past lives, and this didn't impact me till later in life. But I knew I had some sort of invisible gift that 40, 30 years later, I used to do traffic control on the roads, and we were just having a break at the side road, and this was the electrical department, the power lines, and we're talking about Aboriginals and all this esoteric stuff, and the old fella came out with a pair of dowsing rods he made out of copper wire from the power lines here. And he just talking about it, and he said, I reckon you can do this, buddy. And I was all spiritual and then all that sort of stuff. So um, he said, well, over there's a mark on the gutter W where the pipe comes across. So I got the two rods back then, and I call them my higher powered divine gods, whatever. Give me a hand here. I don't want to look like a dickhead. and they crossed, and it just took off from there, as in the dowsing side of it. But like from memory, probably 20 years ago, Peter's name came in the picture, and also Dan's came in. Something to do with Earth grids, Bruce Caffey stuff and all that type of stuff. Yeah. And I've just been reading your stuff and following your stuff and other people's stuff, but mainly about because I'm in Australia. The song lines word comes up and ley lines and all the different terms they use, and I just got a really deep interest in it, and happened to fall into a bit of money, so I spent I don't know thousands of dollars on doing courses with different people and going to different places in the country, and it's really
and buying books.
Yeah, I can say them in the background in a minute when I turn the background off and buying books. But um, but but anyway, my special thing I specialize is in earth energies, whether it's grids, electric, magnetic, connecting to the stars, and that type of thing. I've got the gift to be able to do it, and I just go out and on my land find it, and go somewhere else. I can find a stone circle, like they call them borers here. And if someone took me somewhere, I'd just walk and I'd find it. So I've got that. I've got that connection, and I'm not scared of going out in the dark, under the stars. I've been initiated into that, walking into the bush with no lights, no torches, and all that sort of stuff. So, knowing, you should all know that there's some, dark shit going on out there, and it doesn't frighten me because I know it's there, and I know what to do with it, and and the healing side of it. But just about anything to do with the Earth's energy and what's below it, and what's above, and also governments overlapping.
Do you have a report on Australia about the health of ley lines and song lines?
Oh, well, let me jump in there. Let me jump in there because we definitely want to do that. But let me just pause there because there seems like a little gap where I can jump in and say that we wanted, in my mind, do kind of an introductory round and then kind of open it up for the whole deal. So that's except for this, I want to ask Costa one kind of last question, give you a chance, Peter, to say something about yourself. I have something in mind. And so, if I may, so Costa, uh, you tell us about the nature of your relationship with the indigenous people there, and if you would, in a kind of a 30 to 90-second clip.
Yeah, I could tell you that really quickly. The people that I'm treated with, so I'm part of their tribe. The father of the man I'm with now, I met him twice at a tent embassy, the Aboriginal tent embassy, where it was land rights and all that sort of stuff. And he passed a couple of years ago. When he passed, I found out later. I received the dreaming of the carpet snake, and that came to me in my dream. And that's a totem of the mob I'm with up north, southeast coast. It's it's on an island, but that image came to me, and I phoned his son up a couple of weeks later. I said, "This came to me. What time? Blah blah." And that's when his dad passed. So he's given me this gift of the carpet snake, and that's what that image is in the back. That's the rainbow serpent, part of the story, and just ever since then, it's just the trust and rapport with the black fellas. And there's other stuff too, but it's mainly that was my connection. I knew it was fair income.
Mhm. That
Yeah.
was that was pure
it, did,
dinkum. That was pure
it, did,
dinkum.
it didn't scare me because the snake was coiled up, the head was up the top, and it just took off like that. I said, "What the fuck is this about?" But that's the image, yeah, as a coil, and it took off. Um, yeah, and there's the symbology and all that type of stuff, and the dolphins involved in it. I think I told you a little bit about the story last couple of weeks ago,
A little bit, but
Daniel. About
I just want to, by way of introduction here. So
yeah,
thanks again
yeah, that's a short version of that my connection.
for sharing that because we want to know
That's right.
where you're coming from. So,
Yeah.
uh, Peter, I love how you talk about your origin story, and we won't belabor the point. Hopefully, here in this first round, we can go into it more in depth, as people care to. But um, you were working with stone as a stonemason, and you were putting a lot of energy into stone, so to speak. So could you kind of just briefly start there and then kind of bring us all the way through to, I don't know, today somehow? And feel
Today, yeah.
free, this is your, feel free
Okay,
to,
yeah, yeah,
you don't have to, you don't have to be too quick about this. This is the meat of the whole reason why we're
yeah.
here. So, but we don't want to belabor. You've
Yeah, I mean,
done
it's not entirely about me. I mean,
no, but I
you know,
mean, and then again, it is. But this is you've done this introduction elsewhere, so
yeah,
people can find it on other podcasts and everything. But give us
yeah,
just a quick
yeah. Briefly,
flavor of it.
yeah, I was born, and they call me Peter after all these rocks that were pulled out of the family's house foundation. And my father was got the GI Bill and built a cape for the family, and my mother chose this site on top of a hill. And so they pulled out, when they dug the foundation, they pulled out a bunch of dinosaur track footprints that were in the rock. So from day one, I was uh, kind of experiencing the earth as alive, as an imprint of life on the earth. Um, and then I grew up a Catholic and all that stuff, all the guilt trips. But I would have dreams. When I was 7 years old, I had a dream 7 times, this exact same dream, just to imprint it. And I spent the next many years trying to figure out this dream and what it all, it had standing stones in it and these mountaintop chalets and or chalet with a wood carver, like a godlike character that was um, carving, all these animals, so he had a workshop there with all these animals on it. And there was he said, go upstairs, and there was a spiral staircase up to the bedroom upstairs. And there was, everything was all carved, all the wood and everything was all, floral patterns everywhere. Uh, and and the bed had at the foot of the bed there was like a motif of a woman like on a boat, that whatever they masthead, uh, and it came alive and smiled at me, and it was like it was just like that smile was like just really just took me right away, and I just kind of like, whoa, there's talking wood here, there's a live living wood, and so I guess that was my dream boat or something, that the bed I was sleeping in, and so whatever. So I went back down the spiral staircase, and and the old guy carving smiled at me, and I walked past him just like in this state, like just tripping almost, and that was later in my life. But yeah, so I went out onto this flat green yard out in front of it, and there
Yeah.
was a circle of stones, well, a half circle of stones. I guess the rest of it was going around behind the house. But it was like these standing stones there, and I'd never seen standing stones at 7 years old. I had no idea what they were, and I went out to the edge of it, and where I lived in Massachusetts, there was that's in Western Mass. Massachusetts means people of the Blue Hills. So when you look off in the distance and you have these receding hills, you get that Da Vinci blue color as it goes off into the distance. And as I like looked off in the distance, all of a sudden my consciousness was following my sight, and I zoom, just went off to the farthest horizon, got there, and then there was another farthest horizon, and I kept doing that over, until I woke up from the dream, and over and over and 7 times when I was 7. So it kind of that keyed something in me to look at things, and my name, Rock of the Field, Peter Champoux. Champoux is French name that means a farmer of the field. And but I just started, with the field. What's the field? And quantum physics came around, and all this other stuff. I just try to figure out I thought that there might be some clues in my name. And so I took that, and so I started to look for what stone is in the field, and I came across Stonehenge and Chartres Cathedral, and I decided to take up stonemasonry. My father was a factory worker making Uniroyal tires, uh, car tires, and truck tires, but he was always on strike. Every year and a half, the unions would go on strike. So he would build stone walls. So I ended up helping them, and then I got so good at it that I just started doing it, and uh, it just came natural to me. And so then I decided to actually, no, I tried to be a photographer there for a while, but it was I wanted to be in National Geographic, so there was this kind of like key of that geographic aspect of things was grew in me. But I ended up dropping that and just going into this work with masonry, and mainly to create sacred space. I wanted to, yeah, I wanted to create sacred space. So I took apprenticeship in classical stonemasonry. How to carve and cut and quarry and do all that kind of stuff. But then I realized that, hey, I was born in the wrong century. They're not building cathedrals anymore. But I just kind of immersed myself in the Gothics, in the Gothic cathedrals, in the cathedral building, which led to sacred geometry, and so that evolved into a study of sacred geometry, and what that was all about, and learning from the sacred geometers, books, and reading Robert Lawler, and John Michel was an early influence on me with the View Over Atlantis, and there was a number of other books that he wrote, and he incorporated the sacred geometry into it. And he showed me this one map of Ireland that was had a pent, and each kind of pie of the pentagram around Ireland defined different county areas of Ireland. So that started to work on me, and so then I spent 30 years slamming rock and cutting it open, and when I was I had this reputation of taking raw rock and turning it into some, beautiful fireplace or something like that. And where I was living in New England, there were a lot of, whenever you dug a foundation, you came up with, all these boulders from all the glaciers and everything. So I would just take whatever was pulled out of the foundation and slice and dice it up into, cornerstones and keys and, do whatever I had to do to, do this rock. But when I cut those rocks, like the first cut, there's something, like a rock that's been sitting there for millions of years, just, taking in all that etheric energy, or if you will, or telluric energies, and the memory of ages, millions and millions of years. This rock is, and tumbled through glaciers and rounded off and everything. And here I come along and cut it in half. And that first cut, when you cut a virgin boulder, if you will, in half, when it finally splits, you drill these holes and put in plug and feathers and do a memory line on it, so that this memory line was very much, I was seeing that it was very much like a ley line that I was creating across this rock. And so every hammer blow, well, these metal pins I'm putting into this rock are like a standing stone. And, when I hit it, I learned in my studies that when granite is struck, uh, just with a hammer, it increases its electromagnetic charge. So I started to, what's this? And so in in splitting these rocks, I found that right when they split, there was this kind of release of energies that came in, came out of the rock that empowered me. I felt the chi of it, and that was another piece of it all. And um, later in life, I learned that Rudolf Steiner said that when you split a rock open, you release a gnome of knowledge. So after doing this over and over and over again, I think there was some knowledge imparted to me from the earth itself, through these boulders, through the gnomes of knowledge that were released and came into me. So I knew when the boulder would split, so I'd hug it, get down there and just take that full energy into me when it released. So yeah, so I'm skipping around here. Timeline isn't really the straight, but I was involved with New England Antiquities Research Association, which looked at all these anomalous stone structures around New England that were pre-colonial. And in my research, I was finding, well, all these sites have the same geographical pattern, like a hill in the back and a spring over here, and things like this. So I said, well, I mean, if all these places are like this, well, if I can find another geography like that, maybe there'll be something there. So topographical maps like crazy, and so I'd find those sites and then go to them, and sure enough, there was a stone, an ancient stone site there, standing stones, calendar stones, and things of that nature. And then I started to, well, ley lines. I had been introduced to ley lines when I was 14 by this man called Rashad Field. He and John Michel were roommates in college, and those two were the ones that really started the modern research, the modern ley line fascination. That kind of resurrected Alfred Watkins' work in England. So yeah, so and that was through my brother, who they were into Sufism, so I became a Sufi and. Became a whirling dervish, and that got me into vortexes. Yeah, so it's just been one thing after another. It's just it's like um, uh, you know, guided life, more like I don't think it was guided. It was yeah, it was guided, but not consciously. It just kind of brought me along, and with a lot of pain and suffering along the way, like all humans get to experience. Uh,
Wow. Well, wow. Thank you for sharing that. That was parts of the story I hadn't heard before, actually. So that was great. And your brother, remind me his name?
my brother,
Yeah.
my oldest brother, John. Yeah, he's a
Oh, John.
John. Yeah,
Okay.
he translates obscure Christian esoteric texts from French into English. You know, he can't speak French, but he can he's one of the best translators around. Yeah, so
Far out.
yeah,
Far, far out. And you're both familiar with Jean Michel. You might not be familiar with NERA, NEARA, which is the New England Association for
and
Antiquities Research of some
yeah,
kind.
yeah,
And so there we go. So now, Peter, you um, identified a triangle of mountains in your region of Massachusetts, and
yeah,
that was the genesis of the Gaia matrix.
yeah,
That triangle you found, and then that triangle implied the inverse triangle, and then the circle that circumscribes those two paired triangles. Am I right so far?
yeah.
Okay, so was that when you first started looking at Earth rings? And perhaps you could kind of expand on the Earth rings idea for us.
Yeah, that's I was looking, I've always been interested in maps and geography and rocks and geology and what's underneath the ground. So, I had all those maps available to me, and this was an idea that was kind of percolating for a while. But the premise was that if there is geometry, sacred geometry is essentially the geometry of nature, flowers and humans, with their phi proportion. Uh, and so I said, well, and then there's geometry in galaxies, and there's ring geometry patterns that emanate out from the sun in the form of planet orbits. So there's geometry everywhere. But I said, well, what about geometry in the land itself? I'd been introduced to it by John Michel and in his work with Ireland. Uh, as a pattern. And he also worked in
Okay.
Jerusalem, with coming up with a bunch of patterns that it appears as though the Romans were also keyed into this and laid out Jerusalem in that way. So I just took it upon myself to look at the landscape to see if there was a sacred geometry in the landscape itself, in this middle scale, the place between, on the planet. So, if the Earth is producing sacred geometry, it's got to be of sacred geometry itself. So, it was just, well, I'll just look for the simplest, see if I can find a triangle, So I found that triangle of mountains, equilateral triangle, as well. That's just interesting, and well, where's that pointed to? It was like a east-west line at the top, and then it went down to a point. It was actually on a plane of 14.5 degrees off north. But so I looked at that and saw that it pointed to this place I was very familiar with, Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts. And because there was a known ley line that I had been working with for years that went from Boston, out to California. Like I've ended up calling it the First Nations ley because it goes through a lot of the Haudenosaunee, the Iroquois Confederacy, and through the Sioux peoples and out to California and Shasta and such. So it spotted all these sacred sites along the way, and So I saw that, but when I saw the plane of the ley line, it of that lay from Boston out to Canajoharie in this diagram, uh, it was parallel with that triangle on top. So I was like, wow, this is interesting, and then I just kind of filled out the whole geometry from there that you see here on the screen, and that center line. Later on in my research, I found that the center line that goes through, from Lake Willoughby up north down to Connecticut, was a geologic structure called the Shelburne Dome. It was this series of volcanic vents in a straight line that Shelburne Falls was kind of in the middle of, and the main dome, the Pluton, uh, unexploded volcano, whatever, what was at this border between old North America and new North America. So everything, west of that line was, like 3 billion years old, and everything east of that line was all 250 million years old. So, that was, you know, yeah, that's huge, and I'm seeing, there's remnants of Africa stuck on Boston, and there's all this stuff. So it's, yeah, my endless curiosity, got me going. But I mean, all along the way, it's I found it. This is it. I don't, so this is proof. So I was invited up to Tippy Halsey's place, Stargate, up in Thetford, Vermont. She had a hexagonal light center up there, and so nobody showed up for this workshop I was giving on this. But it was the first time I had an opportunity. She had this big open space, and it was the first time I had the opportunity to spread all my maps out, to walk on and draw and do all these things, and saying how things expand, and Tippy said, well, if it expands, does it continue expanding? And I said, oh, I don't know. It's been like this. You just, someone asks a question, and I say, well, okay, I'll look at that. Uh, and as I expanded it, I noticed that referencing that Shelburne Falls site that's at the center of this Gaia matrix or Arcombe geometry, uh, which incidentally I received as a download to call it. The word that I got was archon, and I didn't know what archons were at the time. I just heard archon. So I think this is a matrix of the archons that control the planet or through this particular portal, because Yale and all these universities that are in businesses and insurance companies, and you know like profit through suffering is huge in this area of the world. So but I don't know. Maybe it was Arcom, and so it was another play with words that really didn't work that much. And uh, you know,
Okay,
and-
if I may pause you
yeah,
for a moment, Peter.
yeah,
Um, I I want to open up for people's questions, but I want to ask a question of my own that'll or reframe the last one that'll just bring us up to the present moment.
yeah.
So uh, when you see some kind of star, if it's an equilateral triangle or some kind of star, it implies that it's circumscribed by a circle. We saw that in Michelle's View over Atlantis and his other
Hmm.
books. The diagram of Ireland that you mentioned, and I'll try to make sure I send that along to everybody if it's not already in the Visionary Maps books. Um, I at some point you came upon the idea that not only were these rings, but that the diameters of the rings equated to the moon and to different planets, Mars and such. So maybe you can give us that piece, and then we'll open up for other people's questions.
Yeah. That gets into Earth rings. How do they come about? And that was I've been, what is this? It's like having a tiger or something by the tail. It's like, oh, it is, but what is it? And how does it work? And how does it function? And what is the purpose of it? And, why was it part of creation? And what's it mean for the earth? And, I had all these questions about that. And, um, so I took this center point and started looking at these radiuses. And Earth rings are essentially just taking the arcs that we see all over the planet and completing the arcs into a circle. And that circle tends to have a center point, radius, center for the circle that arc references. So uh, what I found was is that the arc of the California, uh, uh, Mexico, California curve, that arc was resolved by a radius center in Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts. So that was kind of earth shaking for me, and so uh, I eventually I started looking at these sizes and what they were related to, and around that same time, Dan shows up with our friend Dan here, the Vortex detective, shows up with Nick Nelson, and Nick Nelson was working with this golden vortex, and it was essentially a ring with a. Well, here I got one right here. Here's a golden vortex that. Oh, you got one too. Oh, I don't know. Can't really see mine. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So I said, geez, I know that. I know that from somewhere. And I started digging around, and it was, you know, that that ratio of inner ring to outer ring was the same as the what I was finding in patterns of earth rings. So Nick found it in vortexes, and I was finding it in these circular emanations that I'm finding around the planet. And and what I figured out was that it was a map of the that the USGS made of that they were able to discern from the cadence of earthquakes going through the planet to determine the sizes of the inner core, outer core, mantle, and all these different structures, within the interior of the planet. And I said, geez, it's the same size, it's the same proportion. And and then I'm looking at it, and I'm saying, geez, there it is right there in my eye, the same geometry is just kept repeating. Stonehenge had it, uh, the Aztec calendar stone had it, Dendera ceiling had it in Egypt. I was just, and even CERN, the modern CERN, the particle smasher, uses it. And, so that's where Earth rings came from. So I'm finding these various rings on the surface, like the one that's the North American tectonic plate that goes from California out to the Mid-Atlantic Rift, and it's really the only nearly circular. Has kind of a circular shape. The that particular continent. Uh, 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 South America is a 3-4-5 triangle. Eurasia is a geometrically is in the shape of a pentarom, a rhomboid. Africa is a spiral, is what I found. So I just put this stuff out, and there are other people that pick it up, and kind of like, look what I found, but I don't really chase people around for using my stuff. It's consciousness, it's the world, it's sacred knowledge, and I share it freely. But so we, so I'm fine. And one of the things that really got me going on earth rings initially was a workshop I took in Boulder, Colorado, when I was a family man there, and back in the early 80s. And Bob Gulick, he was a sacred geometer of Lindisfarne, which is in Crestone, Colorado. It was like a big think tank that there are a lot of sacred geometers that got out there every summer, and they would, all furrow browed and everything and trying to figure things out. But he introduced me to the Dorothy Leone's ring of 19 and 1, the ring of, so I was like, wow, sequencing and everything. I don't know when exactly. I mean, I had found when I went out to Colorado at one point, I had found this a medicine wheel up on the Niawat Ridge up above Boulder there, and just because it had the same geometry that I knew other places had had sacred sites and stone, you know, calendar sites had. Sure enough, there was this ancient thing there. I mean, it was, you could still see the stones, but it was very buried in the tuft. Hundreds of years it had been there, if not more. Beautiful sight of the horizon out over the Colorado plain. But yeah, Mr. Gulick, he introduced me to this ring, and I said, well, if that's, that can't be the only one. So that kind of that made me start looking for other ones. Where are there other rings, and how does this all come about? So with Dorothy, she was a puddle jumper with her husband flying like mail, the U.S. mail around the West. And she would spend pass the time looking at maps and looking at these magnetic anomalies that you have on aviation maps, because your compass goes off, it goes wacky. And so she noticed that they're all in a circle, oh, look at that. All the same circle has all these sacred mountains of the West around it. And, so that was pretty significant. And then the center point was Grand Teton. So, that, so how does that relate to all this? So it just, okay, started building these different rings. And over time, as I kept filling them in, I noticed that these dimensions were similar. Like I was finding a ring on the arc of the east coast of China was the same size as this Grand Teton ring, and most of these rings have uh, a Pluton at the center of it, like a granite feature that, and in the case of China, there was this uh, a massive gorge in the White Emperor City, which is where a lot of poets went and really defined the character of the Chinese people and their poetry. But dimensionally, I said, well, I'm finding these same sizes. Like there's once, well, you can see the blue rings here, the aqua rings. Those are all the same size, and they're all referenced to arcs that are formed uh, uh, through relationship to one another, and they're all the same. They all nearly. I mean, they're not exact. Nothing. Not, in nature, nothing is exactly a tight geometry that you can draw, but the dimension was the same as the inner core of the planet. And that was really kind of like when I realized that, I was like, man, well, so there's so so there's vortex that's mimicking the planet, that's showing up as a dowsable energy pattern in the vortexes that Dan has worked with Nick and everything. And then there's the same pattern is found here, in these earth rings. And these dimensions. So there's this dimensional conversation that's going on between the surface and the inner core. But on top of that, Pluto is the same size as that diameter. So we have this thing of the inner core communicating with the outside edge of our solar system. So like that's how astrology works.
Wow.
It's like this communication between the planets, and we are filled up with this with these uh, with these forces,
Okay,
and
let's
feed by
pause.
these
Let's
forces.
pause. Let's pause you there, Peter. Let's pause you there. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for that. And let me stop screen sharing here. All right. So just to time check, we're at 7 o'clock. I want to give people chances to ask all the questions they have, and or as many as many as we can fit in. Uh,
Okay.
I I would only underscore in that last little bit, I would only emphasize that my co-author Nick Nelson, who is the one who invented this golden vortex magnetic healing device, and co-authored the Vortex Field Guide, etc. I mentioned him in regards to we took this cross-country trip and everything was 19, including your address. So I mentioned Nick Nelson. Nick has found that if he looks at a vortex on the ground, he will very often find that they are 54 miles in diameter. A number one, 54 miles in diameter. Hence, we have a couple of books on that subject. One is U.S. Vortexes 54 miles wide. And then, so the spherical energy, as we're conceiving it, of the vortex is in effect has a certain cross section, which is the surface of the Earth, and that cross section looks something like a circle, perhaps expanding and contracting, and maybe 54 miles wide or some multiple of 54. And then there's a corona around that part of the vortex, which is we call them the lines between these parts, lines of demarcation. So we have the 54-mile diameter, its circumference, and then 9 miles farther on, we have a second line of demarcation, we would call it. So we find the 1/6 rule. That 54-mile vortex has a diameter of 1/6 of 54, which is 9. And we find that repeated. So that Peter was able to confirm that in his own way, and I've confirmed it in my way as well. And I've been able to find various kinds of similar formations. Namely, one very impressive one tends to be Bend, Oregon. So there you go. So on with your questions. We'll go to Nikki first, I guess.
Pasca, why don't you go first this time?
Fair enough. Costa, you care
Oh,
to
sorry.
ask? Do you care
Yeah,
to
I
ask the
didn't.
first question? Nikki's
Yeah, I
saying
didn't.
she said she went first last time.
Yeah, I didn't hear my name properly. That's all.
And I
Yeah.
have too many.
Where do you
Uh,
start? Where do you start?
yeah. I'll try and keep it simple, Peter. You're talking about the planets and their impact association on us as human beings and the planet and below. Do you have any thoughts of the emanations of these circles being part of plasma below the Earth's surface?
Yeah. These rings, in the Earth rings, the various spheres, relate to a geometry of nine. So enneagrams, if you have a nine-pointed star, there's nine-pointed shape. If you connect the dots, you can create, or skip a dot or skip a point and go to the next one, or skip the third, go to the third. So you end up with these four different types of polygons, and these spheres are nested within those polygonal rings. It kind of goes down into that in when you go every fourth one, and you end up scribing a circle at the center, which is the same size as the Earth's inner core. And so uh, that emanation, that what was the question again? I'm sorry.
Uh,
I get
whether
lost.
pla- pla- whether whether plasma
Plasma. Yeah,
within the
so
within the below
yeah,
the
yeah.
surface
So
of
I'm
the
always
Earth
on
has
the lookout for this because I had that same
mm,
suspicion that it was some kind of plasma emanation or some kind
mm,
of field that was being displayed here. And 2 years ago, October 4th, I think, there was this plasma. gamma ray that hit Earth. That was the biggest gamma ray ever detected, in the history of astronomy, modern astronomy. So, all these various space telescopes from all over the world trained their observation on this spot where it was coming out of. I think it was coming out of Sagittarius or somewhere, uh, from the center of the galaxy, and it was a gamma ray emanation from a um, exploding star, I guess, and something that went nova, and a big one. And so I'm looking at this pattern, the circular pattern that these scientists came up with, and it was the same radiance that I'm seeing everywhere else. So, uh, I said, well, what's that all about? And then I found, oh, it's Einstein's ring. Who knew Einstein's ring? But that's the pattern that Einstein theorized was what gravity looks like.
If I may bust in there, I would say that because of self-similarity, and as above, so below,
Mm.
we find that it would be normal and natural for the planets and the components of the planets, the core, the mantle, whatever parts, to reflect some of that incoming plasma energy from, and then that would, you could say, well, it'd be normal for Pluto, normal for the core of the Earth to have this self-similar kind of a harmonic
Mhm.
frequency with the sun's plasma source there. And I want to turn that back on you, Costa, and ask, why do you ask?
Good question. Because that picture behind me is, well, I believe the rainbow serpent also represents plasma, and the song lines here are associated with water slash magnetic field in the earth that comes off water, and our song lines are derivative of plasma. That's why I'm asking: is a circle same or similar? Um, the, the way I know that the serpent is plasma and is associated with songmind is because I believe myself, I dreamt it, and I went in a serpent under the ground as there's two spirals, more of different colours, and we're all running in a tube below the Earth's surface, and all these black fellas on here, and we're doing ceremony under the earth. So you've got the song in the earth, so song line, hence above the earth, you're singing the song. That's
Yeah.
what was given to me in my dream. But
Yeah.
it was
Yeah, I'm
through.
I'm of the mind that there's fulfilling a very important service for the Earth as like a kind of acts of self maintenance planetary maintenance
Mm,
to work these song lines and do these ceremonies. It's like I think our Earth is suffering now because a lot of the indigenous
mm,
people have stopped doing the ceremonies out there, and it really should be a profession. Like
mm,
support these people to do this spiritual work for our planet to maintain it, because
Mhm.
these plasma rings, if you will, all over the planet appear to be like receptors for receiving those plasma, those plasma downloads into the planet. So you might look at another analogy is the cell that this is Earth's cell, and these rings that we have all over the planet are like the membrane of a cell, which has uh, all these like squiggly things connecting these, like squiggly veins, microscopic, connecting these quite often geometric uh, shapes and rings on the surface. And Bruce Lipton did this study of, seminal study of where he took a nucleus out of a cell and the cell still operated. properly because all the consciousness was in the membrane. So the work of the Aboriginal people are working with the consciousness field of the planet and working to bring those energies from the celestial forces and modulating the different, so the earth doesn't need this, it needs this, and we'll draw it in here at this time, and we need to go over here and walk over this song line at this time, and all these acts are very specific to maintaining the planet. So that I think that's what I've kind of concluded after all this. What the utility is. And Westerners, they all want to have, how can I make money, or how can I use this, or what's the purpose of it, and so I think that's it. That all these ley lines and stone rings and geomancy, the whole ball of wax that's involved with all this is all there as a way to work with these plasma energies. They like in the ley system of Europe was abandoned because there wasn't the plasma available to operate the system. Like it kind of, after the fall of the ice canopy and with the flood and everything, there was a complete change of the electromagnetic field of the planet. And all these ancient sites were all dependent upon this highly vital plasma saturated uh, environment that they use to channel energy to like stimulate crop growth. Patrick McManaway and he's a English geomancer. He's identified that the archaeological record shows that human bones were improved after the introduction of stone circles. So and people with sight and some people without the sight, often, when there's, just right. A lot of these men here in France and whatnot, the big boys, the big 60-foot tall ones, they emanate blue plasma. You can see it kind of rising up from the stones. So it's yeah, it's a fantastic thing. And I think that we need to understand this much better in order to be able to fly this planet into the next millennia. Uh, this is part of the system, the environmental system of the world. It isn't just a spiritual thing, but I mean, we have a relationship with it in a spiritual nature because it connects us with the cosmic forces of the universe that are streaming into us all the time, and we have to receive it. So, I'm kind of in a rush to introduce this to the world because I feel that, if we can hold these, just in our own consciousness, just imagining these rings existing, not really doing anything other than that our consciousness creates the consciousness field of the planet that then can receive and modulate these forces that are eminent. Uh, the flash of light, that we hear about. So, it's even if there isn't a flash of light, there's if we look at the planet as something dead and dull, it's not. I mean, it's like you live with someone who thinks that way of you. You know what happens. You just you feel dull and dead yourself. So
Okay, well,
yeah.
thank you for that. Let me pause you there because again, we're I signed us up for 90 minutes because I feel that that's a human scale, but we're gonna roll again same time next week, whether you're here or not. That's my feeling about it. We'll uh, invite the rest of the students, and we'll do pretty much more of the same. Now that I feel like I kind of have a handle on the interface, so. If you will, Nikki, just give Peter something to riff on.
Well, thank you, Costa, for bringing that up because it really, a lot of what I was thinking was addressed. And the thing I kept keying in on, Peter, was the relationship between the core of the earth and the surface at different points. And my understanding is that the celestial energies that come on the planet go to the core and then emanate back up. And the thing that I'm really interested in is communication, and communication between humans, communication with the planet, communications with, all the beings that surround us. And the way I am always listening to kind of two ways that people work with information or energy. And one is with all this really specific knowledge that, like you say, Peter, is really important to bring back. And then there's another feeling knowledge that's like an embodied, lived knowledge that I'm really hearing Costa speak from. And so I'm always looking for how these go together like a whole brain system. And the communication of how we're listening to the planet, to the elements, to what the earth is receiving, and this one big communication system like you're really talking about, Peter. And my question was really, you started to address it, of where is this going, and the way that this is such a part of human conscious evolution with the planet, and how we really come together for this listening, really for the receiving and the listening and the sharing that we're able to do with each other. And it seems particularly important because of all the AI, transhumanism. I call it the mirror world. That's the false world that reflects the true world. And I don't even argue with it because I think it's pressuring us into waking up to who we really are.
Wow.
And
Okay. Let
I,
me
oh,
pause you there.
I had a
'Cause-
question in there.
Oh,
I
okay. Oh,
really
yeah. No,
did.
but if I may,
Go
I'm just
ahead.
going to take a stab at. I'm going to make a reduction, if you'll, or
Okay.
distillation, and I'm going to oversimplify. But I'll give Peter something to fill the next 10 minutes. There's no question, and then we can do a redirect next week. Or if we give you Peter 5 minutes, then we can make sure your question was kind of addressed, and then we'll do just a quick close and talk about what we'll do
Yeah.
next week, I suppose. So, the we're clearly, when we come to listen to the earth, we want to bring everything we can in terms of intellect, but also everything
Mhm.
we can in terms of maybe those other brainwave frequencies that tend to predominate when we're like drifting off to sleep or when we're dowsing, something like that.
Mhm.
So everybody wants to know, oh, how can I better listen to the earth? So, Peter, maybe you could tell us, and then if you can, reserve a little time for Acosta, and we can go over. But uh, what, and I'll go first, actually.
Oh, there was a question that Nikki had. Don't
No,
forget.
Well,
it was,
I'm
yeah.
oversimplifying it, perhaps, but just
No, it was perfect.
in
Thank you.
terms of when we go out to listen to the earth. What are our techniques? What techniques do we find most useful for us? And it's going to differ for everybody. But I don't make a big fanfare about it myself. But I would like to learn to douse better. But I tend to feel the energies in my body. Everybody feels them differently. Oftentimes it's a kind of warmth or cool or tingling, electrical kind of sense. Some people are more visual. Other people are hearing things or smelling things. So let's hear what it is for each of us. In terms of just like setting the stage and how we open up to these energies and how we sense them. If we can, we won't be hard and fast about our deadline. Let's go round once again, starting with you, Peter, if you will. Are you using a pendulum? Are you using rods? Are
Uh,
you deviceless dowsing? Are you map dowsing? What are you,
yeah,
can you,
I've resorted to this. Yes, no.
so you're indicating muscle testing with your
Muscle
fingers.
testing. I still use dowsing rods for locating water or trying to find the ley line or something like that. Like can I use one to point me in a direction, and then the second one to find out where it is, and and identify, the polarities, the Michael Mary energies to locate that and find the center line. I ask for geopathic zones where healing is and needed. And I do that through map dowsing. When I do studies for people, that's one of the things I do is look for that. And yeah, and the whole interface. How does one interface with this system? I've been shown this series of rings, that are nine based. I look for patterns in the land that are nine, that have a nine geometry. One of them that's very, like plain as day is the San Francisco Bay Area. Center point being Buena Vista Park there by Haight-Ashbury. And that we worked with that a couple of years back to bring water to California. There was this huge drought going on, the place is burning up, and I had worked previous times years ago with Benny LeBeau to bring water to California, and so we use this as a target as an attractor for the atmospheric rivers to bring water in and fill the reservoirs, recharge the ground, bring snow to the high country, and do no harm. You know, so I had all those things. I mean, in spades. I just couldn't believe how successful it was. I mean, within a month we had it raining and snowing, and you know, and then it just continued. And how many feet were up in the Sierras? I mean, just 14, 15 feet up there. Wow, just what a gift. So, I worked down and I was in southern Arizona there for 4 years, and I brought water down to that desert down there. That was also parched, and I did that using this Enneagram. And when I wanted water, so I used water to uh, draw the various polygons. I would ask which polygon should I go every other point, or every 3 points, or every 4 points, and then I just I get this 5 gallon bucket of water and do this Rudolf Steiner stir on it. When you're making Formula 500, you're supposed to stir it one way for a minute and then turn it the other way for a minute, then turn it the other way. So I do that to activate the spiritual forces of this water, to activate the actual and this was, I decided to put this ring where I placed it because there was already a fire pit. And I just used the ring that was the fire pit as the defining radius, for the rest of it. Uh, and and it's just, when you use that geometry, it communicates with the universe, I guess. Yeah, the Sonora rings. And I needed a place to live. I was nearly homeless, and so I had a friend down there that was creating a spiritual center. So yeah, come on down and help us out. So I went down there, and I didn't know really where I was going or what was around there. And it ended up being another one of those earth rings that I was in the middle of, and this one was based on copper. And there was a mountain range called the Dragoon Mountains that had a near dead straight line, along its ridge lines. So I said, well, that's unusual. Where's that go? And, right up to Sedona. So it was one of the major, ley lines feeding Sedona, from the copper fields of southern Arizona, which, of course, the copper, the conduit and the whole electrical currents and all that stuff. It's just, it's really, quite remarkable. It's intelligent design, and it's not my design. It's just there.
All right, well, let's pause you there. And now I'm going to pose question towards Costa. Costa, give the general audience an idea how you are sensitive to the energies, what tools you might use, or rods, or how you go about things, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, Dan. If I'm driving along in the car, my head or whatever, my intuition says, go over there. Then I go over there, I get my rod there. Well, Peter knows what I'm talking about. I just jump out of the car on everyone else, but then I get my rods out and I go, what the, what's going on here? Then I feel it. The different vortex type and the different grid type, different line type. Is this for spiritual energy? Was this a initiation site and all that type of stuff? So I asked the land the question, and genuinely, I'll just feel it. Sometimes I might ask. I'd have something going on, a nasty spirit in the backyard. Say, how can I deal with this? And I get an answer back that I won't elaborate on that because that's another story about the healing country with fire and that type of stuff ceremony. But I use one rod because that's how I've been trained to use one rod, and directional dowsing, which comes from when I'm driving and I go to the spot, and then I use my rod to find the exact location, and also tell how powerful the energy is by the particular vibration of the land and the speed of it, and what's below the ground. It comes in different colours and that type of stuff. But that's it generally.
Thank you, and you took a lot of workshops, including with the renowned dowser Maria Wheatley.
Yes, and I'm still in contact with her. Yeah. And your stuff and Peter's stuff and Beth Hagen's. Beth Hagen's was a major contributor to I think I watched a video of Beth Hagen's, and she mentioned some fella doing some stuff in Wilpena Pound, UVG Grid 44. I'm sure he's aware of that spot. And she said this guy was surveying or whatever, mapping the area, but she didn't say any names. So I sent her an email, and she put me in touch with the fella, and he still lives over there. He's in his 70s, and he's a mad scientist like all of us in here, obviously. He's the one who actually suggested that Earth energies are derivatives of plasma, which I've looked into, and then the scientific side of it, the geology and ions, gamma rays, plasma. So that's food for thought. That's why I came up with that question for Peter. Plasma. At the moment, plasma's all a go in the dowsing world from what I see on Facebook. But that's how I'm looking at it,
What is that fellow's name? Do you recall?
John McGovern, but you won't find anything on him.
Oh, yeah.
It's
part of a online group with John. Yeah, he's
quite a doing guy. Glyphs or something. Yeah, he's a mad Irish scientist.
Yeah,
and when I speak to him, I'm guaranteed a 2-hour conversation, and I might get 5 words in.
Yeah.
But he just mind expanding.
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, John.
Very good. Yeah, I've heard Beth mention him as well. All right.
He's worked with Anthony Peratt too, which is the plasma guy. Anthony.
Okay.
I'll send you his book and links. Um,
Okay. Great,
yeah,
great.
yeah. There's one of you mob over there. Yeah, the Plasma Universe. His web page is back up because I don't know, there's family stuff going on. They couldn't afford it or something. But the page is back online. So, and in there you'll see John McGovern's name listed on some articles
Okay.
that he's worked with Anthony. Yeah,
Okay. I'd love to see anything by John McGovern because I don't have anything by John McGovern.
yeah. That's one from Beth. That's a template.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's what that is. But
this is old school. This is way before computers or anything, but
yeah,
there's the Earth star grid broken down into a finer grid over Australia.
yeah. Is
At the
it that's 0.44 there in the middle.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
That's how I got in touch with John because of that, because he actually got in touch with her because he contested her on where the point was because he lived there and he knew where it was.
Mm, mm, mm. Nice, nice. Well,
That's the story on that. Yeah.
we'll definitely go more into Beth Hagen's Earth Star Grid if we want in future, and certainly have done a lot of material on that in the past, because that's the Earth Star globe that you see over on the wall over there, but it's flat. It's displayed flat there. It's not folded up into, but you can see the 30 diamonds. So we're gonna more or less stop sharing here, and we'd like to end in the next 5 minutes if we will. But Nikki, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us kind of how you maybe mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually prepare and how you do sense the energies, whether you do that with any kinds of equipment or tools or anything. And then I'll do a wrap up.
Okay. Uh, so it's pretty simple. It's the same thing we're all saying. I feel like I use my body as a feedback system, and I have learned to really pay attention. I do dark retreats. I go into the dark, for 8, 9 days, 21 days, the longest. And what it really has given me is a way of tracking my continuing consciousness that I'm really attuned to and pay attention to. In the dark, you really are just drifting in and out of states of consciousness, dreaming, lucid dreaming, visualizing. So it really starts to kind of unify your sense fields, is what it feels like to me. And Costa, this last time I went in, I kept having these lucid dreams of these little devices that I was communicating with these other beings. And the last one were some Aboriginal people that were trying to speak to me, and it was like a visual screen in their language. So this translation of languages is really interesting to me also. I see things as languages and the way we receive things. I dream a lot and see if I look at color, I can focus on color and I can become lucid. So I realize color is very key to frequency. I've been an artist, a painter, a photographer, and so I really have used photography as a way of seeing my own scene. So I'm really interested in what the human perceptual system and, I call it the inner technology, who we really are, is something that is really meaningful to me. And I feel like I am wanting to reactivate and claim. And then of course that connection with the living planet. And I also just get, I'm very like kinesthetic. I get senses, turn over here, look here, what's this? And then even my scene will turn on and then I can't stop seeing things. And through photography, I've really studied light. And so I'm I'm just, and so how it all translates and what this is, what these various language systems are. All I can say is I'm fascinated by it, and I'm an eternal student. And Dan, that's why I'm here with you, um, to even learn more, Peter, with the kind of knowledge you have that you can use. I mean, that's what I heard you're doing. You're working with the knowledge and the intuition, and it's the way those go together that, I'm really wanting to cultivate more.
Beautiful.
The end.
Appreciate it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. I couldn't
Yeah.
end on a more beautiful note.
Yeah.
And that's
It's
just
really
a
nice.
prayer for all of us to be more
Mhm.
sensitive, to expand our knowledge and understanding and wisdom and sensitivity. And we will have open channels of communication to each other. Peter, thank you so much for starring tonight. And
Mm.
You're
uh,
welcome. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
I want to say that Peter has numerous books, some of which are available at vortexmaps.com, all of which are available at his website, which is geometryofplace.com. And he even has some free books he's offering. And so we'll continue the conversation. We do need to cut it off arbitrarily at some point. Uh, thank you all for being here, and we'll continue the conversation. Keep up the good work, everybody.
And Dan, thank you so much for doing this. This is
Yeah, thanks,
beautifully
Dan.
modulated, and really thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. And so this is not goodbye, but au revoir.
Until next time.
Okay, we'll
Thank you,
talk soon,
Peter, and
everybody.
Bye,
Costa.
everyone.
I'll be in touch also.
Great.
Yeah,
Looking forward to
thanks,
it.
Peter. Good to
Anytime.
talk to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful, beautiful. Love you all. Bye bye now.
Bye bye.